Well, from what I can remember, I had a very good growing up in Zimbabwe. I went to private schools. Um, I had a wonderful childhood. Um, Before my injury, I'd moved to the United Kingdom about 10, 10 years before that. I had gone to college, which I had done accounting and then I did HND in computing and Cisco's networking. But before my injury, the day before I wrote my injury, I wrote my final university exam. Um, but sadly enough, all that I learned, I've lost. I've lost almost 10 years of education. But such is life, I guess. That's all you can say.
My name is Namo. I'm Tondi's older brother. Um, I've always been really close with Tondi. We grew up in a lot of little small towns, so most of my memories, was always me and him. We'd make friends, and then we'd move on to another town. Was the nature of my dad's work. He was a chemical engineer, so he worked in small mining towns, dodged around. So every 4 or 5 years or so, he'd move on, to a different contract or a different job. So we were always very close. I think most of my memories in childhood, we were always together. I mean, when we moved to the UK, we lived together up until the point he got married, and then he moved. Even after he got married, we lived together, and then he moved up to Scotland. So very close. We've always been close, even with my sister as well.
I met Tondi in London now almost 12 years ago, and we got into a relationship and we got married. And even though now we are separated, still we have a very strong bond and maintain a really good friendship. So yeah, we are still in touch.
From my recollection, the first thing I asked for was my mother. And this is what people have been relating to me because I don't actually remember. They were saying the only thing you were asking was for your mother, and you kept repeating that you had just seen your mom. Where is she? They then turned around and said your mother had died almost 5 years ago. That was a bit of a heartbreak and a shock because literally the way I saw it, I'd seen my mom and I'd fallen asleep, and then woken up and I didn't know where my mother was. That was when I first woke up, but I was put back to sleep because the swelling in my brain hadn't gone down. The next thing I remember after that is, I think about 2 or 3 months later, when I was in the rehab center. I sort of think this is the first time I actually took a serious look at myself. I turned and I looked at myself, and I had a big hole in my head. I don't know if you can see the scar that I have on my head. I think almost a quarter of my head is all titanium plate.
I can't remember what time it was exactly. I got a phone call that Tondi had an accident. I didn't think much of it. Thought he'd fallen over, broken an arm or sprained out something. So I made my way to the hospital, and when I got to the hospital, this is in St George's, it wasn't good. I think they said he'd stopped responding, and from then it was just a nightmare. It was scary. We didn't know what was going to happen. Things just got worse and worse and worse. One thing after another, and it was harrowing stuff.
It was sort of in the middle of the night when I received the phone call, so I just assumed it was a minor injury. Maybe he broke his arm or broke his leg, because nobody told me over the phone what exactly happened. I was just phoned and told that he's in hospital and I should go to the emergency unit. So I did that, and I honestly didn't know what to expect. I was just thinking it must be something quite silly, minor accident, and we would just go home and carry on with everything as things were.
there wasn't any good news for about 3 weeks. It was just, this is happening, it's getting worse, we have to do this, we've done that, oh, it didn't really work, we're going to do this, getting worse, getting worse, getting worse. And then for some reason, he just came around. It was harrowing. I remember walking into the HD unit and seeing him lying there. It was maybe 19, 20 tubes.
The moment when I saw him in the emergency unit, when we were called into the room by the doctors and were told that he was not going to survive the night, I remember this extreme urgency that my mind just shut down and said, no, I don't believe this. I'm not going to listen to this anymore. I need to go and see my husband. So I remember going into this emergency room where he was lying unconscious, and I just started talking to him because my brain just couldn't accept what the doctor said. I couldn't cope with that idea, so I knew I had to do everything I could in that moment to tell my husband that he needs to fight and he needs to survive because I need him back. So that moment, while I was talking to him, and that when he then sort of responded his own way by lifting his arm up, so that was one really, really vivid memory, and that's how at the end he was taken to the surgery to be given a chance to survive. And just from then on, basically the following 5-6 weeks that he spent in intensive care, just being there every single day, seeing him being so fragile, and every day was so uncertain, and living basically hour by hour, day by day, seeing him with all these tubes and needles in his body. And yeah, it's just there. I don't think I can ever forget what I've seen and what I witnessed. And yeah, I think these are probably the strongest memories that I will live with.
The strongest memory I had was when I was being moved from one hospital to another hospital, and I had a catheter in me, and I didn't realize why I had a catheter in me. I didn't need one. So in the ambulance, I just pulled it out and I literally whipped myself. My ex-wife was sitting in front of me and didn't see what happened. I was so embarrassed, being almost 35 or 38. I was urinating myself. I burst into tears. I really, really did burst into tears, because that was the time that I realized that I wasn't the same person I was before.
The staff at the Wolfson Centre, top dollar, really good people. The consultants, the doctors, everyone was very good. And I remember they kept us informed. They gave us the options. Had to make some difficult decisions as well. Along the way. So it was a difficult time.
I don't think I really understood what they were talking about, because I never before had to go through anything like this, and I was very young. I was 21, so I never, luckily at the time, I never had any relatives or any friends who ever been to hospital, so I didn't really understand much about what can happen. Of course, I heard of death and accidents before in the movies and when it happens to other people, but yeah, I just couldn't really cope with all that information. I understood it was sort of life and death situation. I understood that there would be consequences of his brain injury, and while he was in intensive care and while he was in an induced coma, the doctors couldn't really give us much hope, because obviously they didn't want to promise us anything and in case things turn out bad. So in fact, every day we were just told that he might not survive, and if he does, he would remain a sort of vegetable for the rest of his life, or he would be extremely disabled. And I know that I just couldn't accept that. So I was fighting mentally and sort of verbally against what they were telling me. I knew that no, if I believe what they tell me, that means I give up on him, I give up on hope, and I couldn't afford that. Somebody had to believe in him, and so that's what I tried to do.
And after having been through so much of education and my family having been through so much to send me to university, I think that is probably the time that I actually slipped into depression. I couldn't believe what had happened to me. If anything, I felt more guilty about having let my family down after all they had gone through to actually send me to university, and it was all gone.
I work in the NHS. I'm a mental health nurse. So when they started, so when I got there and they said there's a brain injury, I knew what that meant, and I knew what was likely to happen. So when they would talk, so when the consultants and Dr. Hardy, I think it was talking to us and saying that I knew what he was talking about, and I understood what he meant, the craniotomies, the cognitive impairments. I understood all of that, and it was difficult to comprehend, because when you work, you hear these things, but and you work with people, but it's not happening to someone that or someone you're close to. So it was it was hard. It was hard. I knew a lot. I knew a lot. I so when they were explaining to us the prognosis and the likely outcomes, positive and negative, I knew what to expect.
His whole personality, his whole persona just wasn't what I was hoping. It wasn't a nice awakening. It was quite stressful, and I constantly felt that maybe he was in pain, he was in discomfort, and seeing him so distressed really upset me, because obviously nobody would want their loved ones to suffer. So it wasn't nice, but at the same time it was just great to see him with his eyes open, and just quite rapidly, in fact in a couple of weeks he started coming around and slowly building up his strength. So one day he was then sitting in a chair, and then a couple of days after they helped him to stand up, and so that was really promising. And even though he was still very confused, it was also very nice to see that he was somehow becoming the person I knew, and he wasn't just a body lying in a bed.
I didn't understand, and this is almost 9 years ago, and it's only over the last year and a half that things have actually become clearer to me, or people have actually told me things that I thought they didn't think I could handle before. But it is, excuse me if I cry, it was hard to swallow. It was very, very hard to swallow. I forgot to tell you later that I missed my graduation because I was in a coma, and my ex-wife then brought me. I think when I was now at home, my wife then brought me my degree and says, "Oh, here's your degree. You got a 2-1," and I was like, "Oh, me? Really?" I never expected that, but I missed the graduation, which I think would have been the greatest thing for me. The moment that I could have looked up to the skies and said, "Mom, I did it. I did it. I've come through. I've got that degree that I came to the United Kingdom 10, 15 years ago. I've got it. But no, that never happened. I missed that opportunity, and I think the fact that everything disappeared, and to this day I know very, very little of it because of my injury.
We were all mindful of the potential limitations he would have because of the nature of the injury that he had. So so luckily for us, very quickly he regained his motor skills there almost straight away. So when he came round and he wanted to start walking, yeah, he was still quite confused because of the pressure on the brain, but and he wasn't really aware of sort of the dangers and and what was actually happening around him. He was quite confused, but he was mobilizing well. He was able to get up and do things. It was, we were all very happy, but then I kind of understood that for him to be able to reach his optimum level of functioning, whatever that may be, because we weren't sure at that time, it would take a lot of work, a lot of hard work, which I think he's done well.
Every day is a struggle for me. Every day people see me smiling and they keep going, oh, what's wrong with him? But you don't actually realize what's going on in the background. For me to simply have made it for this appointment that you had, I literally had to set up 5 alarms to say, okay, I need to tidy up, I need to cook, I need to clean, he's about to come, in order for me to be going anywhere. I need reminders, otherwise I will clean forget. It is sad and it's depressing.
And what I do remember is that there's a very basic mini mental state test, which they do. They do a baseline when you first come in. So it's simple questions like, so who's the Prime Minister? What day is it? What time is it? Simple stuff. And I think the score is out of 22. So when he first went in, I think the score was like 4, which is really low. That's someone with, I would think somebody with late onset dementia, late stages of dementia. After I think he was there for about 8 weeks. He was there. By the time he came out, it was up to about 14, 15, 16, depending on the different time of day. It was, the memory's better when you're fresh, and then when you get tired, it starts failing. So he did a lot of work there. They did a lot of tests. It was good. And then, of course, at that point, he then had to go back to have the plate put in. And that was another potential banana skin, because then he could get an infection and the rest of it. That went well. So, but then once he came out and they'd worked on the very basics of the skills he would need, he then had to go and build on these, in real life, because that's not real life. That's just, teaching them coping strategies, of how to remember things, to acknowledge that you're not going to remember everything, but you have to try and remember bits and pieces and then fill in the gaps.
Somehow it didn't feel that building up the memories were such a long process. Of course, there was confusion or about dates, and I remember when he woke up, he thought his mother was still alive. He remembered me, but I don't think he was sure that I was his wife already. And he also thought we were living in a different home from where we lived at the time. So that was sad, but quite rapidly he started remembering things. I think what became quite evident later on was the short-term memory more than the long-term memory. Building up new memories actually and not having maybe the capacity or with help to recall times we spent together, because obviously we try to get on with our life as normal and went on little trips or met with friends, and when you wanted to talk about this, at times he couldn't remember, and that was really sad. It almost felt like it never happened, but in fact it did. He just needed clues and time to remember.
I have got to give hands down to my ex-wife. Vicky was the strongest thing for me there. She was the one who helped me when I was in the darkest of places. She's the one who brought me to Scotland. She took me away from the rush, the hustle and bustle of London, brought me to Edinburgh. It took a long time for me to settle here because I didn't know anyone. The doctors didn't know me. To make it even worse, when I came here, it took the doctors almost 6 months to get my notes, and by that time I had had an epileptic fit in St. James's Centre. My ex-wife knew I was epileptic, but she had never seen me have a fit. When I woke up from my fit, the paramedics were actually dealing with her more than me, who had had the fit, because she didn't know what to do. She didn't know how to react. And the fits that I had when I was younger, I used to just fall asleep, but I had a catonic fit in St. James's Centre in public. So when I woke up, I thought, oh, what's going on? I felt good. But everyone, my ex-wife, they were all in pieces. They were all in shreds.
It's an ongoing process. It's an ongoing process. I'm sure he'll tell you now that every day or every so often he sees something as, I did that. Or, what was, that was good. You know, I might not be able to do it now, but I must have been, you know, and that's where the self-esteem and the confidence comes from, which is a big part of having cognitive defects, because there's a sense of loss in what in any potential that you felt you had.
I got two aunts. My older aunt, Ivy, I think, from what I hear, she is the one that fought for my life when I was in hospital, because the doctors, when I got to hospital, they told my family that he's not going to make it through the night. Start making funeral arrangements. A couple of hours later, Ivy made those funeral arrangements because we've had to resuscitate him a few times, and we're not going to resuscitate him again. If he goes into a seizure again, we're not going to resuscitate him. We're just going to let him die. However, surprisingly, I wouldn't be here if I'd had another seizure. I never had another seizure, and it was my beliefs of my Ivy, my older aunt, and Jane, my aunts, who are all nurses. When I actually had the accident, it was actually in Croydon, and the local hospital was Croydon, where my older aunt was the administration nurse there. Instead of sending me straight to the nearest hospital, my aunt had me sent to St. George's, where they deal with trauma, etc., etc. I've been told if I'd been sent to Mayday, I would have died on the waiting list.
I think I became a lot more understanding of people, and I don't think I ever been a judgmental person, but I don't think I had much understanding of people living with disabilities. So after this, I became so much more empathetic. I think I always been, but it sort of opened up a different world that I didn't know before, and I have so much more respect and awareness of what people might be going through, and I think with that I'm able to help other people as well. So this sort of increased awareness is amazing. And of course, just, well, there aren't just good things. I mean, I think on one end, it also, I cannot deny it impacted on my mental health as well. It's just a life-changing trauma, and I think I developed anxiety afterwards, and to some extent depression, although I think for me anxiety was much more evident. I became quite a fearful person in general of anything going wrong, or being really worried about him, but also about other people. So it did impact on my mental health, but also I could see how there is always hope. So I developed this sense of strength and resilience, that no matter what, we should never give up. And yes, people around us talk, and people have different lives, and you can compare your life to other people, but in fact, don't believe too much of what you hear and see, because there is always hope for something better to come out of something, even such a horrible circumstance and such a tragic accident. There are positive outcomes, not just negative outcomes.
There are days that I sit and I think, oh, you know what? I've lost my career. I've lost everything. And then I sort of sit back and I think, well, you know what? I actually kind of enjoy what I'm doing now. The job that I have now is the job that I worked with, the guys that I worked with the day before I got injured. These are people that have known me for years and years and years. If I didn't know these people, I wouldn't have got the job. And half the reason why I got the job is they know me, they know my problems, and they're willing to work with me. Whereas several other places I've been to work and everything, oh no, you can't do that, where you have to go. I mean, there was a period of 6 months that I got offered about 3 or 4 jobs, went in for 1 week, and they said, no, we can't do this, we can't do this. So that is just when you realize that the people that you have in your life, you take them for advantage. You should really take a little more time on them. My accident, I feel, has brought my family a lot closer together. I mean, not just my close family, cousins of cousins, they've all got hold of me. My friends, I mean, friends who are in Australia, and they've all texted me, oh, how are you doing, Tondi? What's going on? Are you okay? What's happened? Etc. But what happened? Where were you? I don't remember. I am only going on what other people tell me. The view of what happened to me on your day, on that day, your view is different from their view, and my own view.
It's very easy for me to say, oh, you know, my brother, this is what happened to my brother. It didn't happen to me. I still have what I have, right? He has what he has, but that's not necessarily what he wanted. And this is, you know, so that's what's changed is the pain that we all feel that he doesn't have. You know, I don't think we even really remember what it was that he was so driven to get. You know, because you do a degree in finance and HR, and then you do computers. You might end up working something completely different. But that's just a conduit to do that, right? So we still have that, right? He's done all that, but he has to start again. Do you see what I mean? And that's that sense of loss that he has. It's an inspiration for us, was how he keeps going without losing heart and without losing motivation. Makes the struggles that we have quite petty.
I truly believe that Tondi is a remarkable person. He's got this enormous strength. He's a fighter. He's always been. His life never been easy, in my opinion, even before I met him. But he's just so resilient. is amazing. And so I think personality matters, but it's also something that people can develop. I think people can develop resilience, they can develop strength, but he somehow he has it in him. He's just very, I would say, very optimistic person. So that definitely helped, and he's very driven to follow his dreams, his plans, and family and friends is a huge importance in anybody's life. But if you have to go through something challenging as this, having connections and maintaining those connections, I think, is extremely important. So I think it definitely helped him to have his siblings, his cousins, his aunties, his friends phoning him, checking on him, showing that they cared, even though they lived far away. And well, I hope that the fact that I was there for him also helped him. I tried with all my strength to believe in him and assist him on this journey to become the man who he wanted to be.
Never give up. Never give up. The number of times that Tondi has called me to say that something hasn't quite gone how he expected it to, but he's going to carry on. So that sort of outlook in life, that positivity, which is quite infectious actually at times. That positivity, that actually this didn't go on, but what can I do? Onwards and upwards, and having support around you. Anything's achievable. And when they say to you, people like me who work in medicine, we know some of the stuff, not everything. All right, so some of the things he's doing now, or able to do now, and things he will do in the future, they would have put their houses on that he would never be able to do, and yet here we are. Yes, there's some cognitive deficits, but if you didn't know what he was like before, you wouldn't know if you met him in the street, and that's a huge achievement. Not only for him, but the people who supported him, his wife, Vicky, everybody. And it's something that we're all very proud of, and it's a reason for hope. It's a reason for hope, because if you look at what they said to us when he was in HDU, in the high dependency unit, and where we are today, they said it would never happen. Yet here we are.
Again, never give up. There is always hope, and I think it's very easy to do. It's very easy to feel low and feel hopeless and helpless because it is horrible to go through something like this. But nothing is permanent. Things change all the time, so even such situation will change. But I think people have to develop a sense of openness to whatever to come, to be open to other people, to be open for opportunities, and pushing yourself to connect with people even when you feel low and you don't want to leave your house. Go and do it. Go and meet your friends, go and meet your family members, because you will need them. And don't be shy to ask for help, because there is help out there, and at times it's very difficult to find out where that help is, like professional help. But there is help, and for that you need to go out and you need to talk to people, you need to ask for help, you need to be resourceful, and do not compare your life to others, because each one of us has our own path to walk on. And even though maybe you go through something really difficult and seemingly impossible to come out, that doesn't mean it's impossible. Nothing is impossible. So just try to have a belief that things will get better, and if you stick to it, they will change.
The only advice I have for anyone going through a head injury, depression, anxiety, a whole group of things is you need to believe in yourself, right? You can't be turning to other people to tell you who you are. You are by yourself. Find your own path, and don't think your path is going to be simple. If a path is simple and easy to get to, everyone will be on it. You have to work hard for what you have. I mean, people always say to me, "Oh, where are you going?" And I say, "You know what? I know where I want to be. Oh, when are you going to get there?" Time is not the matter. It's not a matter. That is one thing that I've learned is patience. Patience is a virtue. Everyone wants something, but they want it now and here. There's a good reason why you don't have that, what you want now. There are the two reasons. You don't deserve it, you don't need it, and it's not going to bring you any benefits. Flow with life, take it as it comes, right? It's not all going to be hunky-dory. There are going to be good times, bad times. The good times, enjoy them, but share them with others. The bad times, do not ignore them. Let them affect you, but then dust yourself off and say, you know what? I learned. I know that's fair enough. I won't do that again. If anything, my injuries taught me that you only have one life. Trust me, you only have one life. I've been given a second chance, and I'm trying to make the best out of it. Not everyone in the world gets a chance. Do what you do to the best of your ability. You might be a CEO of a company, or you might be the cleaner of that CEO's office. It doesn't matter where you are on the ladder. You've got to be enjoying it. Enjoy it, and life will be so much easier and so much better. Like my book says, smile and the world will smile with you.